Let me tell you something that will change your life if you let it sink in. The richest people in the world are 75% entrepreneurs, 15% investors, 7% inheritors of wealth, 3% athletes, entertainers and artists, 0% employees who just earn a salary. So if you want to know how to manage your money like the 1%, you have to understand what those first four categories have in common. So let's think about it. Entrepreneurs own businesses. Investors own assets. Rich kids own trusts. Finally, athletes, entertainers and artists own rare skills. So it's clear, if you don't own something, you are what's owned. That's the secret most people miss. So how can you start owning things like the 1%? Well, you need to follow the 25-15-50-10 rule. I designed this rule so that anyone, no matter what their income, can manage their money like the top 1%. Because the truth is, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how you manage what you make. I'm not just some YouTuber. I've actually used this rule for decades, and it's enabled me to become a multi-millionaire, even though I started out with no money and no qualifications. So let's get into it. The first 25% of your income should be going towards growth. This is the 25% that works for you. By growth, I don't mean some kind of mindset nonsense about growing as a person with the power of meditation. I mean using this money to buy things that increase in value. You see, when most people get their paycheck, they pay the bills and then blow the rest on useless things they don't even remember buying. This is exactly why 99% of people are trapped owning nothing of value. The truth is, this is all by design. The system wants us rich for a week, then skint by the end of the month, waiting for the next payday. So we've got no breathing room, and then we're forced to work even harder next month just to keep up. This is effectively modern day slavery. Just think about it. Slaves used to work every day with no pay, but they got free food, shelter and water. Today, people work nearly every day and get paid. However, their money is mostly spent on food, shelter and water. The only thing that has changed is the illusion of freedom. Once you understand this, you can start fighting back by taking that first 25% of your income and putting it straight into assets. This is anything that grows in value over time and puts money in your pocket. The idea is that while you're out working, these assets that you own are working for you in the background. Eventually, these assets could even make you more money than your day job. You might think you don't have enough money to invest in assets. However, you need to find the money, because the sooner you start, the better. Let me show you something that will blow your mind. This is Billy. He started investing $200 a month at 20 years old. And this is Phil. He didn't start until he was 30, but to catch up, he invested $300 a month. Now, let's fast forward it to when they reached 60 and they both stopped investing. Now, I'm going to give Phil a walking stick, and I'm going to give Billy some glasses. Right, that's better. Now let's add up how much each one saved. Billy put in $200 per month for 40 years, so that's a total of $96,000. However, Phil put in $300 per month for 30 years, which is a total of $108,000. So Phil ended up with more money, right? Because he saved more each month. Well, not exactly, because they were investing instead of just saving. If we assume an average annual return of 10%, which is the average return of the S&P 500 over the last 100 years, then the numbers start to look a little bit different. Phil's investment will be worth $678,146. Not bad. Whereas Billy's investment would be worth a staggering $1,264,816. How crazy is that? Billy invested $12,000 less, but ended up with nearly $600,000 more, all because he started earlier. That's the power of compound growth. That's why you should start now, even if it's small, because waiting will cost you more than you think. But how can you actually get started? Well, step one is to select your growth assets. There are loads of ways to grow your money, but not all of them carry the same risk or reward. So I like to think of them as a scale from relatively safe and steady to high risk, high reward. At the lower risk end, we've got index funds. Honestly, this is where most people should start. You're not trying to pick winners, you're just buying a slice of the whole market. Like the S&P 500 I mentioned before, you don't need to check charts or time the market, you just let it sit there and grow quietly in the background. Then there's real estate. That could be rental property if you've got the money, or REITs if you haven't. REITs lets you invest in real estate without buying a property. It's kind of like buying a small share in a building with a bunch of other people. In the middle is skills. Learning a skill that makes you money is hands down the fastest return on investment you'll ever see. I'm talking about things like copywriting, editing, sales, coding, anything you can actually use to bring in income. Unlike stocks or property, no one can take it away from you. However, it does take more time to learn, and that's why it's higher up the risk scale than the other two. Further up, we've got online businesses. Stuff like drop shipping and selling digital products. These can pay off big, but they take a lot of effort, and you've got to be ready to fail a few times before you find your feet. Then we get to individual stocks. I know it's tempting to try and pick the next Tesla, but unless you've done your homework and you really know what you're doing, you're basically just guessing. So if you're going to do it without learning the specifics, keep it small and treat it like a hobby, not your main strategy. And right up the top is alternative investments. I'm talking Bitcoin, Ethereum, NFTs, gold, wine, sneakers, you name it. Can you make money with these? Absolutely. Can you lose it overnight? Also, absolutely. I've played around with some of these, but I never risk more than I'm willing to lose. These are your moonshots, fun to try, but not where you build long-term wealth. So if I were you, I'd start with the stuff that actually builds a foundation, which are index funds and high income skills. Then as you grow more confident, you can start dabbling with the rest. So now you know what to invest in. Now we've got to talk about how to invest, because